We are kicking off live here from Bitcoin Design Week. It is Friday in September 2025 if you're watching this, and we have just wrapped. We're slowly wrapping up the last few hours.
Not yet wrapped.
Not yet wrapped. Last few hours of Bitcoin Design Week right here at Presidio Bitcoin in the heart of San Francisco. My name is Mogashni. I am the co-founder of the Bitcoin Design Foundation together with Christoph, and we run Bitcoin Design Community. And here is the amazing Mat, but I will allow them to do their own introductions.
Go for it. My name is Mat Balez. I'm a PM on the Spiral team. Very happy to be here with these two at the conference and on my very first podcast. I was telling them just before we started, I've never been on a podcast before in my life, so a little bit intimidated.
You're doing spectacular.
Absolutely spectacular.
And I'm Christoph, basically same as Mo here, and it is super exciting. Been doing this Bitcoin design thing for 5 years. I never ever thought that at someday we would be in San Francisco, in such a beautiful place, and there would be a co-working space like this one with so many great people, so many great projects, and we would actually have something like a design week, right? It's still kind of blowing my mind. So it's been super exciting.
Do you maybe want to share how it started? Because Christoph kind of threw a droplet of water into a chat conversation, and now here we are.
Wow,
Yeah,
let's hear this story. I don't even think I know this
It may
story.
have been about a year ago or so, and I think we were in a Discord group with Steve, and there was something like, "Oh, there'll be like a new co-working space in San Francisco or so," and I was like, "Cool, let's do a design week, and we can all paint a mural together because like every co-working space needs a mural." And
we didn't do any mural painting.
I pulled a Mid-Journey, and I was like, I'll make a mural in a co-working space, and I was like, just kind of having fun with things. And like, here we are. We don't have a mural. I mean, maybe we can do that, or you can come back.
I feel like I got rugged. We were promised a mural. We didn't do the mural. Next time,
mural.
Next time. That'd be a fun activity.
It would actually.
Been conferences where there's like this collaborative thing. There's a wall you can do things. Something for Onyx.
Great.
But I do think, we've had 5 days now, and we've had 5 days each of them was very, very different topically, but also in terms of the format. And it was. I thought it was really awesome. But I really think the two of you did most of the planning there. So I don't know. Maybe you want to speak to that a bit.
I think Mat was really instrumental in creating the vision behind a lot of the days that we had. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more about that, like guiding the vision in a very particular direction.
Sure. Yeah. I'm not sure about instrumental, but I guess my thought, when I was invited to help Mo and Christoph put together this week was to gather designers here in San Francisco and take advantage of the fact that we are in Silicon Valley and do two things. One, bring some of the best Bitcoin designers in the world to San Francisco, and then have them engage with the best Silicon Valley designers that are here to hopefully light up some of the Silicon Valley design talent about Bitcoin and explore some interesting problems. So the objective of the event was really to start to get Silicon Valley excited, particularly the design community, who I think has been fairly far removed from Bitcoin for many reasons. But in terms of the programming for the week, the hope was really to kind of take people on a journey, even though we recognize that we wouldn't necessarily have people participating in the entire week. We wanted to kind of like have the week be a journey. And as it turns out, actually, we had quite a lot of participants who participated the entire week. So that was kind of like a little bit of a delightful surprise. But we started at the beginning. And as designers, it's maybe the natural place to begin. We started with the users, and Mo and Christoph ran a session thinking about who uses Bitcoin around the world today and why. And that was an opportunity to reflect on the use cases of Bitcoin, and was possibly our busiest evening. It was great. And we'll get into kind of some of our highlights, but one of my highlights from the week happened at the end of that evening. But just proceeding from there, on the second evening, we wanted to tackle something kind of like fast forward to present day. And one of the most interesting topics in Bitcoin right now is thinking about the future of Bitcoin as a payment rail for the world. As part of its destiny as money eventually. But there is a kind of competing or countervailing force in the world for payments, which is stablecoins. And so stablecoins are very topical, very du jour. And so we wanted to have an evening exploring this boundary between Bitcoin and stablecoins. How do they differ? What are the relative strengths? And so we had a couple of speakers, one speaker speaking on the topic of stablecoins as the future of payments, and another speaker speaking on the topic of Bitcoin as the future of payments. And then we had some Q&A, and we did some, actual design exploration, and that was
It was fun.
It was a super fun. It was a super fun time of literally sketching UIs, and we had people like presenting hand sketched UIs. You know, the task was like, go design a wallet in 30 minutes. You know, so it's like a big challenge, but yet, you know, you have interesting ideas that surface from that. You know, it was pretty awesome. So that was day 2, and then the third day was again kind of like, you know, fast forwarding to present day reality, and it's an area that I'm particularly excited about, which is vibe coding as a new tool that, you know, anybody can use, but especially designers, and especially designers in the Bitcoin space, because suddenly Bitcoin has become it has become possible to build on top of Bitcoin and to bring to life real Bitcoin applications on top of real infrastructure very quickly with vibe coding. And so it's a future that I'm very excited about, and wanted to share some of the joy and enthusiasm for that evening. And we did, and we kind of like came at it from a few different angles. Some very kind of like, I consider the kind of vibe coding that I do in Bitcoin like fairly, you know, beginner, maybe intermediate, but then we saw some really advanced kind of workflows and tooling that some of the other designers and Bitcoiners use to build some really sophisticated things. Again, I'll get into the highlights of the evenings later, but just kind of tracing forward in time. Thursday was our first opportunity to move from evening events to do a full day event. And so that was yesterday. We hosted a full day event, which we called a deep dive. And it was a really great deep dive to dig into we call them the grand design challenges of Bitcoin. And I guess that's a very long list, actually, if we're honest. It is a list that is too long to enumerate, but we had to pick a small handful. So we picked 6 of the meatiest and most interesting design challenges in Bitcoin. Some of them quite technical, and some of them more maybe cultural, to kind of cater to different aspects of what makes a Bitcoin design interesting. And it was an opportunity to actually get our hands dirty with some design, do some collaborative work all day long, and then present our stuff back to the group, which was super fun. And today, the day's been a little bit more playful and loose and future oriented, where we posed ourselves the question, what if Silicon Valley embraced Bitcoin? Imagine this future where Bitcoin kind of really kind of achieves its destiny as future digital money for the globe. Then inevitably we're going to see Bitcoin manifest itself in the tech products that we know and love. What would that look like? As a means of kind of maybe being a little bit provocative, to invite Silicon Valley to imagine, maybe to help get the juices flowing a little bit. And so while we speak, people are in the room next to us, actively working on designs to help bring to life new ideas for how Bitcoin might work inside of Gmail. Actually, that's one that I'm working on right now. And like, what if Bitcoin was in Uber, or what if there was Bitcoin in LinkedIn? You know, just all these interesting questions, like how might that create new opportunities, new experiences in the product? So that's what's happening today. So it's been this journey from kind of like starting at the beginning and ending in the future. It's been a pretty cool week. I think I've had a lot of fun with it. But that's the general structure that we kind of like put together. And I think people have enjoyed it.
So as you're listening to this right now, there is live history in the making. There are people working on ideas now that might be literally changing the future of our current monetary system and the future of Silicon Valley.
We are inflecting the
it's
future
happening right now.
every moment of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, in preparation for this event, something that I found personally challenging and super interesting is that we didn't call this event like Bitcoin is awesome, but the title was Design Future Money.
Right.
It was really taking a step back and not assuming everyone's bought into Bitcoin, everyone thinks it's awesome. We just need to slap it on, right? And just kind of force people to use it, but really dig deep into the what money means, where it came from, what it is today, what we're used to, where it's failing, and how we can improve on that in the 21st century with modern tech. And I think the Tuesday, the stablecoin conversation was interesting because it's almost like, the traditional system's almost like, well, it's trying to cling on and make its way into the new system that we're trying to build. It's like, can fiat money just kind of take over the new system, the Bitcoin system that we're trying to actually build, or can we set ourselves apart from that one? So for me, that was this top level thinking, and also the keynote on Thursday that I did was also trying to zoom back out, like how we feel about money, like how it stresses it out in our lives, how it allows us to buy comfort or freedom or health or all these things, and how different cultures and people deal with it, and just approaching it from that perspective. Where it's not forced on people, but it just solves real problems, right? Because that's what we try to do.
Yeah, totally right. The overarching theme, design future money, I love it for many reasons, the least of which is not kind of exactly what you pointed out, that it doesn't presuppose the solution of Bitcoin. It's like, it's what Bitcoin is trying to be. It's trying to be future money. And so like, let's think about it in that lens. And even that thought even kind of transcends the theme of the conference, but also how we've kind of branded it. So when we developed the website and the poster, part of the idea was to perhaps counterintuitively push Bitcoin to recede a little bit to the background, not be so Bitcoin forward, even in the design. I don't even know if the Bitcoin symbol appears in the designs at all. I don't think it does. No. We hardly mention Bitcoin, right? It's just like, this is about the future of money. And then let's explore how Bitcoin might be part of the solution.
I want to also say just a big thank you to all of the people who attended the event and took time out. So the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday events were evening events. So just three and a half hours. And then the full day events, which happen on Thursday and Friday today, were full day events. Now, the evening events were open to everyone, but we curated a special group of people for the full day events. Mm-hmm. And, those people were people from Google, Amazon, maybe a few other company names, but
there's people from Apple here, from Intuit, a really interesting cross-section of companies.
So we're super grateful to have pulled these different thought processes, these people who think about design in a different way than us as Bitcoiners think about design. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important that we pull them in, because I don't know if it was you that I said to, Matt, but if we put a bunch of Bitcoin UX designers together in the room, we're all going to agree with each other on the current, way, the current designer and user experience. And so,
to some degree, I'm pretty sure there's some things that I believe that I would not say everybody agrees with me on, but
and it was actually very different from what we usually do in the Bitcoin design community. For example, we had a design-a-thon several months ago, and that was global, completely accessible, 2-week long. Anyone can participate, and some of the winners who won like the design-a-thon prizes, they were from Argentina and Nigeria and India and just all over the place. So it's kind of interesting to think now, okay, now we're going usually global, now we go hyper local.
So, and quite exclusive. It is because literally you had to apply to get in, and it's interesting. I mean, like, both things have merit, right? Like I love the global open access, it's part of the Bitcoin ethos, but being here in Silicon Valley, I think it's also important to acknowledge that there's an interesting set of designers here that we want to go and engage, and try to harness some of the specific energy that exists here as well. And that's what we tried to do over the course of the week.
We had some of the designers ask the question. One of the designers mentioned, and he said that, I feel that we as company X, I won't mention the company name, might be missing out on potential users by not incorporating Bitcoin into our current product. So that was very interesting that came from him. And a side joke with Christoph is that, Christoph throws a small, pebble in, and then the whole river starts happening. So we have to be careful, because Christoph's ideas just, become events. I mean, here we are like a week on a full weekday event doing a lot more than painting a mural.
Okay, I guess I have to be very careful what I say. I say a lot of stupid things as well. Fingers crossed those don't become a reality.
Maybe it would be fun to just explore what your favorite moments from the week were.
Favorite moment, just like half an hour ago, I think Sachi, Eric was sitting with her on the sofa. I walked past, and Eric's like, "Hey, come over here." And he's like, "You're good at AI generating images. Sachi needs something here." I'm like, yes, I love that. I haven't been able to do that all week except for my presentations. So he's like, "Yeah, we're working on." I'm not sure I should mention her project. It's okay if I mention what she's working on. She just wanted to have like this super surreal graphic where like clouds are forming certain words, and she has this lush landscape of flowers below that, and it's like, yes, let's make it happen. So we hopped into Midjourney and prompted a bunch and just sent her over those images, and we'll see how it turns out later. But that was just a really fun impromptu thing. Like, let's get creative here and let's make something cool.
That's awesome.
So I enjoyed that one. And then yesterday I had the chance to do something that I care about, which is digging very deep into fees and how we communicate those to users. Super boring topic, super essential to the health of the Bitcoin network.
Totally
important to adoption. That fees scare people off, but if we do them well, they're something that incentivizes people to actually care and use Bitcoin. So I got to dig into that one a bit. It was also fun.
Awesome.
3 moments. I'll be very playful here.
Playful.
One is
On brand.
dancing,
Very on
is
brand.
suggesting dancing and using dancing for everyone to enter into a moment of flow during today when we were brainstorming. The second one was being the voice of the users and giving the presentation on Monday, which for me was something that was very close to my heart, really speaking for the people who are not able to be here in the room with us and share their voices, share their use cases. And the third one I would say was from the vibe coding evening. I particularly enjoyed seeing the different, methods which people are vibe coding. Stephen Delorme, completely different. Yourself, Matt, completely different. And Eric, everyone has their own method and we can just choose how we'd like to learn. And there's just so many possibilities. I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I have several highlights. From that first evening, I think one of my highlights from that day, and something that surprised me a little bit, was how much engagement there was in the room. I think we had imagined that evening as being like talks that you both would give to the room. But
my talk, I planned it for 25 minutes. It ended up an hour. It was just conversation.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. I loved how engaged the audience was and that it was a conversation. So that was tremendous. Also on that evening, we had an engineer from Google show up, and she actually works in payments at Google. And I was able to, send her first Bitcoin Lightning transaction. And I think it's fair to say, like, literally blew her, well, maybe not, I can't say literally in that context, but blew her mind with how fast, the transaction arrived. I pressed the button, and it was the fastest Lightning transaction I've ever experienced in my life as well. But as I touched the button, it arrived in her wallet, and she joked with me. She said, it arrived before you even touched the button, which I thought was hilarious. But like that kind of enthusiasm and engaging users kind of for the first time is something that I've always delighted in. And so that was fun. But then also jumping off the back of that evening, I realized, I had an idea that kind of came to me after that evening that even though people will, be delighted by receiving their first Bitcoin, there's a kind of obvious question that is begged, which is, okay, now what? What do I do with my Bitcoin? And to date, the narrative has largely been one of store of value, which remains very valid, for, I think, reasons that will be obvious to all Bitcoiners. But, as we think forward to all the payments use cases that we think will happen, there's this thought, well, how do we make Bitcoin actually useful out in the world? And I realized at the end of Monday that I don't have any good places to send users to even spend just a small amount of Bitcoin to experience maybe a small amount of value, just to start to understand that it can be spent and that one can use it in a delightful way. And so I went back to my hotel room on Monday evening and vibe coded to life something that allows you to use Bitcoin, and that I'm now using as part of how I demo and talk about Bitcoin Lightning payments. And so a pretty cool like vibe coding idea that came from that evening. Another highlight was on Wednesday, just seeing how many people that came to the session that were interested in vibe coding that had never vibe coded, and sitting with them and helping them vibe code for the first time and introducing them to vibe coding on Bitcoin. And literally one young woman, I stayed late afterwards with her, helping her get started on Replit. And she was so motivated that she said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to vibe code this, on transit on the way home. And she looked at me and she said, it'll be working by tomorrow morning. She like promised me, hold me accountable. And I came in the next morning and I said, did it work? She said, it did. And I was just like so impressed with her. And lo and behold, now one day later, she's now accepted her first Lightning payment through her web app that she vibe coded. That just happened today. So like another victory for her, which was just awesome. I mean, I have so many other. I don't want to belabor the issue, but it's been just an awesome and very energizing week.
For sure. Just one thing that I also found so interesting is the stablecoin discussion, where I thought like, I kind of know. I think I know what they're going to talk about. Like, no, it's like it is so deep. There are so many unique thoughts and angles, and I just learned a whole bunch. We are surrounded by lots of super nice, super smart people. I mean, both the speakers and people in the audience. Just having conversations with everyone. It's like, be humble, learn, be nice. It's just really invigorating and just fun. Everyone's just so collaborative and open, and couldn't really ask for better people. And like that's what it's all about.
And it's very difficult to choose I just want to share one more good moment.
Yeah, please.
Because the three-way podcast between Steve and Max and DK this morning.
Yeah, the
I
live
really enjoyed
PBJ.
that.
Yeah,
Do you
we
want to
had
share a little bit more? But that was amazing.
Yeah, so Steve Lee, David King, and Max Webster have a weekly podcast right here in this studio on Fridays called PPJ. And they dig into topics from the week on Bitcoin technology and how it intersects with politics, economics, philosophy. You know, it's a very wide-ranging podcast, but the stories they tell are grounded in like deep technical knowledge. But I think actually find them like very accessible as well. So it's one of my favorite podcasts. And given that we were here in Presidio Bitcoin, I asked them. I said, "Would you guys do a live version of your podcast on the Friday morning to kind of help kick off the day?" And given today that we were exploring this topic of exploring how Bitcoin might manifest itself in the big tech Silicon Valley products of the future, I wanted them to give us their take for why Silicon Valley has been missing Bitcoin to date. And, they're all from, Silicon Valley. So I thought they'd have unique perspective on the topic, and just a wonderful conversation where they kind of went pretty deep into the incentive structures behind how Silicon Valley runs and how venture capitalists, fund these companies and the culture of Silicon Valley. And that podcast, I think, has been recorded and came out today. So I encourage you all to go and watch that podcast. It was recorded right here in front of the live audience. Great questions with the room. And it was cool. Normally speaking, they take, comments, on the Twitter feed, and they take questions. But here they had a live audience. And I think they also had fun with it as well.
And one more highlight. The food.
The food
space,
was amazing. We have to thank
PB
Alex.
crowd.
Okay, let me do the Alex bow down right here because we did it in person. But if any of you have the pleasure of ever visiting Presidio Bitcoin here in San Francisco, this office is very well taken care of by a man by the name of Alex. And he has taken exceptionally good care of us this whole week that we have been here. So Alex, I know we do this for the third or the fourth time, but we would just like to say thank you very, very much.
Never enough gratitude. Thank you. Yes,
exactly.
Thank you, Alex.
Cool. Should we try to wrap it up and get back to the action because people might be waiting for us?
Let's go.
We'll wrap up soon, but I was just going to say that maybe it's a maybe highlight. I hope that a highlight for me also is going to be what we're about to see after this long day of brainstorming and designs. I'm really eager to see what people have produced. And, the hope today is that we produce some design artifacts that we can send out into the world and that they'll find their way into Silicon Valley companies, and that people will be intrigued and maybe horrified and maybe have some conversation and inspired to bring Bitcoin into their products. And so like Mo said, maybe many years from now, one of the ideas that germinated today will find its way to you.
Provoke, imagine, and have fun.
There you go.
We'll find out. Cool. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for tuning in.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cool.